Well, hello everyone. Hope you're having a great night. Welcome to Let's Be Neighbors. It's a program with Salt Lake County Library System where we discuss topics of importance to our community with local experts. Tonight, we are excited to feature emergency preparedness for ourselves, our loved ones, and our communities. We have a fantastic lineup tonight. We have Lenore Corey, who is the Community Risk Reduction Supervisor with the Sandy Fire Department. We have Nicole Lopez, the Training and Quality Assurance Manager of the 911 Center for the Salt Lake Valley Emergency Communications Center. And then we'll also have Benjamin Eder, the Preventative Search and Rescue Coordinator with Salt Lake County Sheriff's Search and Rescue. So afterwards, as I mentioned, we'll take all your questions because it's really important that we are able to hear from you and get your thoughts and questions answered. And one more time, if you are just joining us, if you don't mind just popping into the chat and telling us how many people are viewing from your screen or device, if there's more than one person, so that we can get kind of an accurate count of attendees tonight, and it helps us make these programs great. And then, like I said, feel free to pop a question into the chat at any time during tonight's presentation. All right, so without further ado, I'm happy to turn it over to Lenore.
Thank you. Okay, hello everyone. So I'm going to be presenting on something called CERT, and CERT is Community Emergency Response Training. First, I'd like to introduce myself to you guys, but also on this slide is my contact information, and I'll also share it again with you at the end. So if you don't have anything to write with right now, you can do that afterwards. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So just a little bit about myself. Again, my name's Lenore Corey. I've been with Sandy Fire Department for 16 years. 3 of those years are as a volunteer. That is how you, back in the olden days, got on as a firefighter here with Sandy. I was born and raised in Utah. I've been married to my husband, Jason, for 28 years. And I have 2 sons and a daughter-in-law. And some of the things we enjoy the most are camping, fishing, and hiking. And when I'm not with my family or at work, I like to hang out with my friends as well. So just a little snapshot of me. And then you can go to the next slide. So what is CERT? I just want you to think about that question. Some of you may be familiar with that. Some of you may have heard about it or have had friends that have taken the class. So if you want, you can put something in the chat about if you know what it is or what you think it might be, or you can just think about that to yourself. We get all kinds of answers if people are not familiar with what CERT is, and I'll go into that in my slides, actually what it is. We get a lot of answers. Some people just really don't know. They have no idea. And some people think that they're going to come out of our 6-week training. So it's once a week. So Tuesdays, being a certified firefighter. And I am so sorry for those of you that think that would be awesome, because I think it is awesome. That is not what happens. So we teach you basic skills. We teach you skills to what to do before we arrive, before the police department arrives, before someone arrives that can help you. So they, again, not professional rescuers. We don't train you to be that either, but we know how valuable you are in our communities, how valuable our citizens are. And so we like to train you with life skills. And I like to tell people that it's not just for the big one, right? We all experienced an earthquake. And so it's not just for that. And we're going to talk about other disasters that can happen in Utah. And it could be just a daily, something that you have to use in the daily life experience. So just something to think about. So a couple of you have responded that you know what the training is, that you've taken the training before. So that's great. The next slide, please. So this is what CERT is to me. and to my fellow instructors, it is about you and it is about your family. Even if you come through the CERT training, it does not require you to go out into your neighborhood or community. It is for you and for your family. Some of the words are on here are community. Some of them on here are respond, helping, family, first aid, adaptable, friend, different things like that. But the first thing that we want people to understand about taking a CERT course is it is for you and your family. And if we knew that your house, um, let's say the Corey home, because everyone in my family has taken it. One of the benefits of being in my family, I guess, that my family would know what to do. Because that's the other thing, I won't be there. I will be coming back to work. So I want my family also to know what to do. So again, it does not require you to go out into your neighborhood. It just is so that you can have that one more piece of knowledge in an emergency preparedness type setting. So yeah, if you could go to the next slide. So what disasters do we have in Utah? You can just say it out loud to yourself wherever you are, to your friends if you're there with someone. You can put stuff in the chat. We do have a few different disasters that happen here in Utah. And some of the ones that people obviously always think about are earthquakes, right? I deal with fires, so we also have not only just home fires, business fires, we have wildfires, depending on where you live. Snowstorms, we're all familiar with those. We've had flooding lately, we've had mudslides. One of the newer topics in CERT is talking about terrorism, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And occasionally we have a tornado. So there are quite a few different disasters living in Utah that we can have. And depending where in Utah you live is where is the disasters that you could have as well. So if you could go to my next slide, please. So I just want to go through this little roadmap with you, and I'm just going to go through a little bit through each section of what we do in our class, and what you would learn in a CERT course. And again, I can only speak for Sandy Fire Department, what we teach. There is the training that comes from FEMA, which is a government entity that introduced the CERT program. But each city has a little bit different of what they teach and what they're able to teach, depending on how their citizens will respond. The size of their city, if they're a full-time fire department, if they're a mainly part-time or volunteer. So I will be speaking from what Sandy Fire does with theirs. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can find out what other cities or fire departments would teach. So this first one is general preparedness. We teach and talk about the different kind of disaster kits you might have. Do you live alone? Do you have a family? Do you have pets? Do you have a kit for your car? Are you going to have one for work? And it really kind of depends what your lifestyle is at the time when you take the class. When I originally started teaching and I put my kit together versus now, something crazy is my clothes in my CERT kit shrunk. That's a joke, but I don't know if everybody else has that same problem. So it's not only starting those kits, but working through and making sure you're updating those kits. Do you have a plan for not only what you would do in an earthquake, but how many of you have actually had a fire drill at home to practice how you would do that? So that's in general preparedness. We talk about, we don't really are very specific about each person. It's more overall. So if you could just go to the next, number 2. Number 2 is medical. Now we talk not only about life-threatening, but non-life-threatening. And so life-threatening would be a serious bleed. And we talk about what that looks like. We talk about how to treat that versus non-life-threatening where someone has a broken arm. Still painful, right? Not fun, but definitely not a life-threatening, or in most cases are not life-threatening. We talk about what you would do if someone is not breathing. We talk about what you would do if someone is in shock. And so there's all different kinds of topics within medical that we teach you about. And we talk about some very interesting things that people have come up with to actually work through a medical situation, or like not spending a lot of money on first aid stuff, but more some of the things that you could just use right in your home. So that's really, I really like that one. If you could just go to number 3. And number 3 is your home safe. And so one of the things I talked about a little bit with, are you having fire drills at home? What is your fire load, what we call that? Do you have a lot of unnecessary clutter in your home, unnecessary garbage? How are you storing your fuels? Do you know about your utilities, how to shut them off if you needed to, or when not to shut them off? And we also do fire extinguisher training, and we talk about what that looks like, because some people aren't sure, like, how big is a fire that I could fight with a fire extinguisher? And so we talk all through that, and we have most everyone I know that teaches the class has some type of prop that you're practicing, like, for example, the fire extinguisher training for. If you could go to number 4. Number 4 is rescue. We talk about how if you live alone, how would you self-rescue? If you live with people, how are you helping them if you need to? What does it look like to, back to number 3, what does it look like to shelter in place or to have to evacuate? And in that, how you would rescue people out. And not just people, but pets, because we know that pets are very important. And so we even talk about how that looks like if you had to, for example, go to a shelter. So we talk through all of that and the resources that, like, for example, the Red Cross has set up for those kind of things. If you could go to number 5. So like I said before, number 5, a terrorist event. So we do talk through that. We talk through what that would look like. The reason one of the reasons why that was brought into CERT is because of the amount of active shooter situations that we can have in certain communities, and what that looks like. You would become a first responder in that, because the fire department is not there yet. The police are trying to deal with the active shooters. And so you may be the person that is applying a tourniquet in that situation. And so we talk through all those kind of things and how to keep yourself safe. And we teach what's called Stop the Bleed in a part of that. And so that is a new topic that we teach. If you could go through number 6. Number 6 is also a newer one. It's disasters and mental health. We have all been through an earthquake. We've all been through a pandemic now, and we know what that feels like, to feel fear and to feel alone and to feel what it looks like to go through these different things. And so we talk about coping skills that you might need to develop or already have, and we share those ideas with each other. A lot about what we do is not solely what the instructors are sharing, but what the people in the class are sharing with each other. And that's my very favorite part about this course, is the information I learned from you as people that come in the class and that you teach each other. It's awesome. I love it. The other thing that is not listed on this slide is a mock drill. Now, depending on the circumstances, like, for example, when we were starting to come back from COVID, we did not have mock drills, but we are starting to have them now. And that's just where we would put you through a scenario of all of the things that you have learned, to be able to work through that in as live of a setting as we can. Obviously, we're not having real injuries and things on people, but we get pretty good actors and actresses that help us through those. So, and then if you could just go to the next slide. So this is my contact information. I know a lot of you have asked questions about what age you can take CERT, what the cost is when people have CERT. My best advice to you would to be going on. So for example, if you wanted to find out about Sandy City, Sandy Fire Department, and the classes that we have, here is my email that you could send me an email, or you could just go right onto Sandy City's website and you just Google Sandy City, and you could just even put CERT in there, and it'll come up with our calendar, a question and answer, frequently asked questions, different things like that, because each community is different as far as what they charge, depending on if they're having to hire outside instructors, what the cost is of the course supplies. And so that is why my best advice to you would be to go to each website of the city or a fire department to find out the information about when they're having it, the cost, age, different things like that. So that is, and also, I know that someone asked like, how do you know if, you know, there's a need for the CERT teams or in a community emergency, and that works through the emergency manager of each city. And I'm pretty sure that each city, I know that we actually have our emergency manager come and speak in one of our classes so that you actually get to have that interaction with the emergency manager of a city, because the fire department is not the one that calls out certs, mainly because we're in the emergency, right? It goes through our city. And so that is how we would get that information out. So that's just how that would disperse. So yeah, so I hopefully answered some questions that you guys had. I know we're going to do a question and answer at the end. And so let's see. I do have one that says, do you need to take a CERT course? It is not required. No, it's not required. Just like with the earthquake that we had in the pandemic we've been through, everyone did what they could and helped who they could and reached out to their neighbors or were just taking care of their own family. It would be very similar in any type of situation. Just like the fire department did not have CERTs respond in the pandemic, we still wouldn't, because of what would be happening through that. We would ask you to still continue to operate as you did through that. So it really depends on the situation. We had a water situation a couple of years ago where we actually used some of our certs to help with different evaluations and dispersing out water and different things like that. So it really kind of depends what the emergency is, but we would just use volunteers that came and that responded to the city when they put that out. You wouldn't have to be cert trained for that. So thank you. Heather, I don't know if I should just keep going with the questions or if you want me to wait till the end.
We'll wait till the end.
Okay, because I can answer the few of those, or I can just turn it back over to you guys.
All right, thank you so much.
Welcome.
And all right, we will go straight on to Nicole Lopez, who is with the Yes, we'll let her introduce herself, actually. She needs no introduction.
I was muted, but thank you. I think I've got my stuff together. I normally do these things in person, so I will try to do this without in-person immediate feedback and just staring at myself in the screen. So I am Nicole Lopez. I'm the training manager over at the 911 Center. It's called Salt Lake Valley Emergency Communications Center. It's a very long title. We call it VEC for short. I've been dispatching for 13 years. I started with the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office as a dispatcher. Then they created UPD, so I was at UPD for several years. And about 4 years ago, we merged with VEC. Previously, it was just police only. And now I learned the fire and medical side of things as well. So now we do it all. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about our center, what we do, about calling 911, things that we want the public to know, and then just a little bit of information about what being a dispatcher is. A lot of people have an image in their mind that they get from the media, from TVs, movies, etc. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about that as well. So we are a consolidated dispatch center. We do police, fire, and medical for our agencies, and I'll get into what our agencies are. But we take the 911 lines, the 911 calls. We also answer non-emergency calls for service for our agencies, and we dispatch for police, fire, and medical. We also handle animal control calls and dispatching for several of our agencies. and any after hours public works emergencies, we call them out as well. Those usually generally come in on 911, so we take care of that. This is a visual of what we do. So this is our valley, and our center covers everything in Salt Lake County except for Salt Lake City and Sandy City. Salt Lake City and Sandy City have their own dispatch center. So Sandy City is dispatched by Salt Lake City Dispatch. And then Highway Patrol has their own police dispatch. So we do their fire and medical on the freeways, and then police, fire, and medical for basically the rest of the county. There's some, like, for instance, Alta, we do medical but not police. Bluffdale, we do fire but not police. So it's kind of all over the place, but essentially we cover 75% of the valley. We are the largest dispatch center in the state of Utah. Out of all of the 911 calls that come into the state of Utah, our center does 30% of all the 911 calls. So it's a lot. We do about 28,000 911 calls every month, which is about averaging 800 911 calls every day. Overall, including non-emergency calls, we take 1.8 million calls every year. So we're busy. Our busiest time of the year, people are always curious, and some people guess that our busiest day of the year is New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, but it is actually July 4th. That is our single busiest day because of the fires and the fireworks, people blowing themselves up, blowing up other people or property, or also people calling to report fireworks in a restricted area, etc. So July overall is our busiest month, with July 4th being our single busiest day. Just to put that in perspective, this past July 4th, like I said, we take about 800 911 calls every day. That's our average. And this past July 4th, during the two busiest hours of the day, from 9:30 to 11:30 at night, those were our busiest hours. And in those 2 hours, we took over 900 911 calls just in those 2 hours. We did have extra staffing, so we probably had about 50 people there, with maybe 30 of them taking 911 calls. So 900 calls divided by 30 people in 2 hours, it's still quite a bit. So we're very busy. And I can't see the chat, but I will, after my slideshow, at the end when we do Q&As, I'll make sure to answer any questions you have, so please put them in. These are our agencies. We have 12 law enforcement agencies. You saw the maps, you can see how big it is. And we have 8 fire agencies. Overall, our biggest clients are Unified Police and West Valley Police, and then Unified Fire and West Valley Fire. Those are our busiest areas, with the rest of the valley quickly catching up with all the growth that we have. Here is a picture, since you're not able to come in person and see it. This is our dispatch center. This is actually not what it looks like right now, because we are going through a remodel. So this is an old picture. We did have 50 consoles, so 50 spots that people could sit in. And our building is 25 years old. That furniture in there is even older than that. I mean, so we were in dire need of a remodel. We had non-functioning equipment, non-functioning furniture and chairs. So we were approved this year to remodel. So that picture, it's actually physically torn up. There's holes in the floor and wiring everywhere. So we're excited. We're getting new everything, and it will be 58 consoles, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that extra 8 consoles actually gives us quite a bit of extra space and room to grow. So we operate 24/7. We have total staffing about 150 dispatchers, and there's usually about 35 to 40 working at any given time. We do 12-hour shifts, weekends, holidays, graveyards, we're there. And let's go to the next one. This is our, just to give you a visual of what an individual console looks like. This is our fire dispatcher, again, a pre-remodel. And you can see she's actually monitoring 6 different computer screens. She has 3 different keyboards, 3 different mice, and 6 monitors. It's a lot. There's a lot going on, a lot to worry about. On the right side, that's her radio. The 3 main screens on the bottom, that's her main computer and our computer dispatching system that we use. And the top monitors are our phone. So we've got a lot going on. So let's talk about calling 911 and things that we would like the public to know. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard the slogan, the save a life, stop a crime, report a fire. Those are the things that we generally say to call 911 for. But we do like 911 reserved for emergencies. And we consider emergencies to be any serious medical problems, any type of fire, whether that's just smoke or a smell of smoke or a smell of a chemical. So any type of fire, and then any life-threatening situation or crime in progress. Those are what we would like you to call 911 for. In our center, we have call takers that are just taking the 911 calls, and then we have separate call takers that are just taking the non-emergency calls. So calling 911, you should get an answer right away. If you call non-emergency, there may be a bit of a wait, but that's because we want to leave the 911s open for when it truly is an emergency. So like I said, a lot of people kind of have in their mind what a dispatcher is, what it's like when they call 911. And I just wanted to explain how it works in our center. We are lucky enough that we are big enough. We have separate call takers from dispatchers. So, you know, a lot of times on the movies and stuff, you'll see it's the same person taking the 911 call and dispatching the responders. And that definitely happens in our center. But for the most part, we have separate call takers that are taking the 911 call. And while they are gathering that information from the caller, they are putting it into our computer system, and the dispatchers are simultaneously sending our responders. So they're going to be asking you questions, getting all of the pertinent information, giving you instructions, whether that's medical instructions or safety instructions. And that's not delaying help at all, because their coworker is already sending police or fire or medical, whoever you need. So it's all happening simultaneously. The more information we can get for our responders, the better prepared they'll be in what situation they go into. And then we know who to send as well. Sometimes you just maybe need police. Sometimes you might just need a paramedic. Sometimes you need both. So this is just kind of a graphic showing that. But all of our dispatchers are call takers as well. So if the 911 calls, if we have a sudden surge, you know, a big event, you know, like that meteor the other day when everybody was calling, wondering what that big boom was, you know, our phone lines just blow off the hook and everybody jumps in and takes a call. So sometimes it is the same person dispatching the responders as taking the call, but either way, we are multitasking masters. So we will be dispatching them while listening to you. I'm listening to what you're saying. Also, I'm telling my responders at the same time. So, yeah, wanted to show you that. Wanted to go over a little bit of myths about calling 911. And one really big thing is people assume that I know exactly where you are when you call 911. And if you call from a landline phone, then yeah, I get your exact address. However, most people have what's called a VoIP phone, or voice over IP. Actually runs over the internet rather than your actual physical phone lines. So you can take your phone and kind of plug it in anywhere. So the address that shows you might not actually be at. And then with cell phones, actually the current technology is it does what's called a triangulation between cell phone towers. So it you call 911, it goes to, or anytime you make a call, it uses the closest cell phone tower to you. Unless that one's busy, then it's going to go to a different one. But it'll triangulate between 3 of them to show us where you are. Sometimes it's spot on, sometimes it's not. So we always are, the very first question we're going to ask you is, what is the city and address of your emergency? And we preface by saying the city because that's the same address in multiple cities. For example, there's a Crystal Avenue in South Salt Lake and in West Valley. Those are completely different areas, completely different sides of the valley. Magna Main Street, way different than Midvale Main Street. One's east-west, one's north-south, and then the regular Main Street throughout the whole valley. So we always start with city. If you don't know exactly what city you're at, we'll help you figure it out. But mostly the address is the most important information you can give us. If we don't know what is going on, that's fine, as long as we know where it's happening. Because if we don't know where to send help, then we can't send help. We have a lot of resources at our disposal that we use to help figure out where you are. There is technology we utilize. It's a third-party company that works with the cell phone companies, actually, that provides your address based on your location services. It's actually a company that's owned by Uber. So it uses those location services of your cell phone, and it pinpoints basically exactly where you are. If you've used Uber or any of those apps, you can see it's pretty spot on most of the time. So we do have that at our disposal, but it doesn't always work. I see a chat. Is text to 911 working? Yes. Stand by for the next slide. So we do ask where you are, and if you don't know the address, we will help you figure it out. We'll ask you any landmarks around you. You know, if you're at a gas station, which gas station? Can you ask the clerk the address? Can you look across the street, see what is out there? So we will definitely try to find you. If we can't get a good address, we will work our hardest to figure out where you are. The next myth on here is about old cell phones. People think that just because the cell phone doesn't have service on it, that it can't call 911, but it actually can. As long as the cell phone has a battery in it, it can call 911. That's on purpose, so that anybody can reach 911 when they need to, even if their phone service has been disconnected. But we often see that people give their children an old cell phone. You know, it has Wi-Fi, the kid wants to watch videos or play games or whatever, but that also creates a problem in that the kids, they just press buttons, they don't know how to unlock the phone, whatever. We get a lot of phone calls from babies playing with phones. So we just want you guys to be aware that can happen. So if you're giving your child an old cell phone, just keep an eye on them. And if you hear someone on the other line saying 911, then yeah, they probably really did call 911. And then if you accidentally call 911, we ask you to go against your gut and don't hang up. It really is instinct to be like, oh no, I called 911, and hurry and try to hang up. But if you can think about it in the moment, we ask that you stay on the line. It's less work for us and takes away less resources. So if you just stay on the line, we're able to verify you don't need any help. You're speaking freely, which means that nobody's telling you what to say or do, and you're truly safe. Then good, great, I'll close out the call. But if you hang up, then I have to call you back. And if you don't answer, I have to call you back again. And if you don't answer the second call back, then I have to send police. So it just sends a lot of, it uses a lot of resources that could otherwise be used for true emergencies. So if you do hang up, you know, it happens, just answer when we call back so that we can close it out and make sure you're safe as well. Just last one on here, a lot of people call us when they don't know who else to call. Like I mentioned, that big meteor boom on, I think it was Saturday, people didn't know who else to call. They call 911. What is that? Are we safe? What's happening? It's the sky falling. I don't know. And you know what? We tried our best. We found out what it was as quickly as we could, and to educate our citizens as much as we could, but people also call us when the power is out or a water main is broken, or, and they're calling not to report it, but to find out when it's coming back on. So we encourage them to call their utility companies directly. They would have the information much quicker than we would, because we have to just call them and ask. So you might as well just call them directly. All right. So a lot of people actually do not know, but looks like one of the commenters did know, that you can text to 911. So you just go, if you're not able to make a voice call to 911, you just open up your texting app, put in the number 911, type your message, just as if you're sending a text message. That will go directly to us or your local 911 center. You'll get an automated reply first, at least in our center, but I think most of them, you get an automated reply. Ours says, you have reached Salt Lake Valley Emergency. What's the location of your emergency? After that, you're communicating directly with a call taker or dispatcher. Usually we do ask you if you are available for a voice call, because it is faster. It's faster and more efficient for me to talk to you over the phone rather than texting or typing back and forth. But this can be a great tool. We see it a lot used in the hard of hearing and deaf community. They absolutely use this all the time, and it's wonderful for them. People with speech impediments or speech impairments of other types use this as well, and it's great. One success story that actually happened recently that I like to share. We actually had a 9-year-old girl. This was 2 or 3 months ago. A 9-year-old girl texted 911. Her father, who did not have custody of her, had essentially kidnapped her. It was a custodial kidnapping. He was there for a visit. He was supposed to bring her back to the mom's house or somewhere else. He didn't bring her back. He was taking her somewhere else. She texted 911. One of our rock star dispatchers, she's actually a supervisor, she got the call. She was able to figure out exactly where the girl was. And the girl was so sharp. She was able to tell us landmarks that she was driving past, what kind of truck her dad drove, etc. And we were able to find her. The officers found her, and she was safe. And in that situation, it was not possible for her to call 911 because their dad would have been clued in on what was happening. She was just in the back of the truck. So he just assumed she was, texting friends. So it was just a really cool success story. We have a lot of, somebody asked about accidental texts. Same thing, we'll text you back. If you don't reply, then we'll call you. We don't get those very often, if at all. I can think of maybe one that I've had personally, but normally if they're texting, it's usually on purpose. We get a lot of butt dial 911 calls, but not really texts. There's a few drawbacks to 911 or texting to 911. Like I said, it takes longer than a voice call. And also the location is not always as accurate. That third party Uber company that I was saying, it doesn't work with texting. So we don't get that great address from their company. It's coming one day. Technology is constantly improving, but right now it's not there. So just something to be aware of. We'll definitely try to drill down that address as well through the text, but it takes longer. One thing I wanted you guys to be aware of, if you're not, we do have an emergency notification system. Some of you may have gotten, there was an emergency notification message that went out, about a month ago. It was supposed to be for Kearns, but it was the first time we had used our new system, and it actually sent it valley-wide. So we found a bug that we have since been able to fix, but a lot of you may have gotten that, even if you were not in Kearns. So we know the system works and that it sent out messages, and now it's fixed that it will send. We're able to do it by location. So this is if somebody needs to shelter in place, if there's an evacuation order, if there's a water boil order, or even just information I think the Kearns one was shelter in place, but this, the emergency notifications automatically go out to all landlines in the area. But probably a lot of you don't even have a landline anymore. So we would ask that you register your cell phone number. You can do it by your address. You can also put in your work address. You can put in your phone numbers, your email address, whatever information you want. This is only for us, only for the emergency notification system from our center, not shared with anybody. And we don't take those very lightly when we want to issue one. We issue it very seriously, particularly if it's going to be in the middle of the night and wake people up. We definitely consider that it's for the greater good to send it and wake you up if you need to shelter in place or evacuate. We want you to know. So that's a QR code you can scan with your phone or just go to our website. The website's listed there and you can register. And this is just when you get to our website, you go to phone registration and then it kind of explains what it is, what you're doing. And then you can fill out the form and everything on there. So let's talk about being a 911 dispatcher. Just checking the time. Sorry, I told them I would take a long time. So to be just a 911 call taker, which as I explained before, we do have call takers and dispatchers. To be a call taker, it is 3 months of training. Most of that is going to be on the job training. We do about 2 weeks of classroom just to get certifications and give them a basic idea of what they're getting into. And then it's straight with a trainer, one-on-one training for 3 months. There's a lot that they have to remember. How to handle in progress police calls, how to handle fire calls, how to handle, the biggest is medical. We have a medical protocol that we follow and we give specific medical instructions depending on the situation. So they need to be able to handle anything that comes at them. And then beyond that, just knowing all the different policies for all our different agencies. You know, one city might respond on a burglar alarm at a residence during the day, another one might not. So it just, there's a lot to remember and to keep track of. So it's a lot of training. We do several certifications, like I mentioned, our emergency medical dispatching. That's for the medical instructions and processing medical calls. We do CPR. Like Lenore mentioned, Stop the Bleed. We also teach Stop the Bleed, so our call takers and dispatchers get that same training. We do criminal era, it's access to criminal records. We do a lot. And then we do continuing education. We're required to do at least 20 hours every year. We usually end up doing a lot more, but this is just to stay on top of all the changes that are constantly happening and to keep our skills. There's sometimes, you know, you can go months without having an electrocution call, for example. I need to remember how to do that. I need to be ready for that call at any moment, at any time. So we do a lot of refresh training to keep up our skills and keep on top of those. And then we have constantly changing technology, which is wonderful, but we need to keep on top of it and remember how to do it. And then I'm going to keep this light, but I do want to give you an idea of actually what it's like to be a dispatcher. As I mentioned before, we are multitasking masters. So you can see in this graphic, this is very accurate as to what a dispatcher is going to be doing every day. Answering phone calls while talking to the responders, while talking to their coworkers, while typing it in their computer, while answering radio traffic. We're doing all of this simultaneously. We make decisions in high stress situations, decision after decision after decision. A lot of us hate making decisions at home. You know, you come home at the end of the day and it's like, what should we cook for dinner? I don't know. I don't care. I've just spent 12 hours making decision after decision. I don't care. But then again, a lot of us love it. We're adrenaline junkies and we love the chaos and we love to be part of it. But it gets hard. And these are just kind of this is the sad part, that we hear a lot of things, and there's some things that we never want to hear. That I've heard every single one of those in my 13 years. I have taken every single one of those calls or worked the radio with that radio traffic. I was a dispatcher when an officer was killed. If any of you know Doug Barney from Unified Police in Holiday, I was the dispatcher on the channel when he was killed. And boy, that's hard. That's hard. It's really hard because you think it's your fault. There was absolutely nothing I could have done, but I'm the one that sent him to that call. I dispatched him that morning. So it took, it's every year on the anniversary, I cry. I'm in touch with his wife and his family, but still, it weighs on you. Those are the kinds of things we have. We are not just taking calls about barking dogs. We are taking calls about babies that are not breathing. We are taking calls about that fatal accident with a 11-year-old boy. Then those are just the ones in the last few days that I know of. So, and 911 dispatchers historically were classified as secretaries. Administrative support is what our federal classification is. And we have not been included in studies until the last 7 years or so. There's a retired dispatcher that's actually I think she's a senator or something in California. So she's been getting studies to prove that we go through a lot of what other first responders go through. We're not just secretaries, we're first responders. And one of the most recent studies showed, I just want to read this here, that we have the auditory equivalent of what field officers experience visually and tactily in the field. So we have physical, mental, and emotional stress that contributes to cumulative PTSI. And the rate of PTSI among dispatchers is upwards of 25%. And that's just what people are saying or admitting to. Could be a lot higher. So with that, we focus a lot of our training and our health and wellness programs and our peer support. We focus on resiliency with mental health coaching, social connections. And then one big thing that I personally like to do is remember why I'm here. Why, when those tough days, when I'm taking that call of that baby that just died, I just walked the mom through CPR and then the baby didn't make it. Why do I do this job? My gosh, I do it because I helped. I helped her in that moment when she didn't know what else to do. I gave her that peace of mind that she tried everything she could as well to help her baby. I didn't put anybody in that situation, people who call, but I was there for them when they needed help. I was able to send them the responders. I was able to be that voice for them when they needed it. These are some stories that I pulled that are the good ones, the happy ones, the why we do this job. I'll give you guys a minute to read those, but yeah. So we love good outcomes. We love when this situation happens. When you call and we walk you through CPR and we saved, and your wife is alive because you did CPR and I got to help you, like, that's amazing. That's why I do this job. I was there and I got to help save a life. And that's why we do this job. So just a little quote about one decision we make lasts a lifetime. If I make a mistake, it could cost somebody their life. But again, federally, we're considered administrative support. So there's been a lot of push lately to get us classified as first responders. And the classification matters because that affects our wages. It affects our working environment. It affects our training and also our benefits. And what we have access to as far as mental health benefits and retirement benefits. Currently, new dispatchers that start, they're on a 35-year retirement. Police and fire are on a 25-year. So imagine that we do the equivalent mentally, physically, emotionally stressful equivalent job, but we have to do it for 10 years longer. So just like to point that out. But we've got some awesome, like I said, that senator in California, she's really pushing it. There's been a lot of bills going through lately to really get us classified differently. And a lot of states actually have already reclassified. So, but on a federal level, we're trying to push that. But my last slide is just for you guys to have our non-emergency phone number. Like I said, you might get put on hold if you call non-emergency. That's so we can answer the emergencies. So if it's a true emergency, absolutely, yes, please call 911. If it's not, we do ask for some patience and we ask you to call the non-emergency. If you don't know what city handles where you are, or, just call this number, put it in your phone, save it. I would love to transfer you to wherever you need to go. If you're not sure, I'll transfer you to that number. I'd rather do that than have you tie up a 911 line if somebody else needs to get through that line and it's busy. So I will, that's all I have, Heather. That's my last slide.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you. All right. So of an update, unfortunately, Ben Eater is not going to be able to join us tonight, unfortunately. So I think that we can go ahead and get straight into questions. Do you have any questions of what tools are in a cert kit? What are some of the household hacks that you can use? Any other questions about what a day in the life is like for a firefighter, 911 responder? So this is your opportunity to ask those questions. And so we've got a few to start with. So I believe this one is for Lenore, if I'm understanding, if I'm correct on that. So the question is, what is a day in the life like for you?
So for me or for Nicole?
I think that was directed at you, Lenore.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So my life, it looks different than what people think of a firefighter or an EMT. I started on the engine in the ambulance. I've had some injuries, and so I was actually worked in the school system before I became a firefighter. And so now I'm back doing education. So I do solely education for them now. I not only train the public, but I can also train firefighters, police officers, businesses. We're in the schools. I teach CPR and CERT. So I do a lot. So I actually work a regular schedule. I work 4/10. So my life is completely different than it used to be. I used to work, we do 2 days on and 4 days off. So a 48-96 would be what we work here at Sandy Fire as far as a firefighter. And we're required to have all of the certifications. So you don't just operate as a firefighter, you work as also an EMT or a paramedic. And you also have to have your hazmat certification. So, and we do wildland and trench rescue, rope rescue, all different kinds of things. So.
Thank you. So I think this question is for Nicole. So how do you know where to send police if someone does not answer after accidentally hanging up?
So we do get an initial address, which may or may not be the exact address, but we would go off of that. I'm also going to check your phone number for history. If you've ever called before, I'm going to see what address you gave before. And if it's close by, then I'll try to figure out what your home address is. I can also call the cell phone companies. If I have a legitimate emergency, I can ask for them to ping it, which is the cell phone company getting your location. I have to fill out a form. I have to get my sergeant's approval, etc. Like, it's a big deal. We don't just ask them for your location willy-nilly. It's a big deal. If we really truly believe that you're not safe, then we will try everything we can to find out where you are.
Thank you. So we have someone who is curious about the kind of 911 calls you would say that you receive most often.
Well, I would say about 30 to 35% of our calls are accidental or butt dials. It's why I included it in the presentation, because it is quite a big deal. It's really easy to push on the phone screen and accidentally call 911 or hit the two buttons, and every phone is different and watches call. So we actually get quite a few of accidental 911 calls. Outside of that, it really depends. I mean, I would lump together all medical calls would be our biggest. And then as far as police, probably domestics would be our highest that we get.
Thank you. So did you receive training for trauma as a 911 dispatcher? Like, what kind of training?
So not initially. Like I said, I've done this for 13 years, and even with police, and Lenore can probably attest to this with fire, it was not, I mean, your mental health, like, not even talked about. Just suck it up. This is the job. But the job gets harder and harder and harder and more complicated, and we're seeing more violence than we ever have. And that takes its toll. So in the last probably 5 to 7 years, we've gotten a lot better at that, and we offer training. It starts day one at my center. Our training program, we start day one with that kind of how to recognize it in yourself and what to do about it. And we also want our dispatchers to talk to their families to keep them on task. Say, watch for these things in me and let me know if you see this, because that means I need to go talk to somebody. And we have EAP, and it used to be just whenever they could fit you in, and you'd get a couple of sessions. But now they have specific therapists that are trained to deal with first responders. Most of them are actually first responders themselves, retired. And we get right to the top of the list. If we call and we say, I need to talk to somebody right now, I can talk to somebody within 5 minutes. And I can have unlimited sessions. And they are somebody who gets it, because they are also a first responder. So, I mean, really just in the last few years, it's exponentially better.
I agree with Nicole. We've even have, and she may have this as well, we even have a peer support team here within our first responders. And not only here, but we'll do debriefings with other departments if they're involved in a call, with our dispatchers if they're involved in the call. And then we have spouse nights where the spouses can come together. We also have, they have their contact with each other. And so, like Nicole said, it was the same way when I started. It was really, I wouldn't say it wasn't like a negative thing, but it just wasn't a thing. It just wasn't something that you brought up, because we're the people that are supposed to be helping you, not, we don't need the help. We're the helpers. And so it's good that it's changing. So that's a positive for sure.
Definitely. Thank you. So how can we best help you? I believe this is directed at Nicole. So how can we best help you if we are calling on behalf of someone else? Like, if we're calling for someone else?
Give us all the information you have. Even if you don't have much, give us what you do have. if you're calling on behalf of somebody else that's not physically with you, then do you have a phone number for them that we can call, or somebody in the house with them, or a neighbor that we can call? Obviously, we are what's called a blind environment. I can't see what's going on, so I rely on the people calling to be my eyes and ears on scene to tell me what's going on. Yeah, just answer our questions to the best of your ability. We try to think outside the box as much as we can to figure out other resources, whether that's a neighbor or a friend or a bishop or somebody that we can find out more information from.
Thank you. So if you do receive Amber Alerts, does that mean that your cell phone is already registered when you were talking about registering your?
Okay, that's
cell phone?
actually that's separate. So we do also issue the Amber Alerts when we have when it meets all the criteria and everything. That's actually a setting on your phone that you opt in to those emergency alerts, and it is a separate system. So this is just for our local emergency notifications. Whereas Amber Alert would be more of a regional alert. This is local to a specific area.
Thank you. That makes sense. Okay, so this is for both of you. Do you ever get prank callers, and how do you handle that?
Lenore, go ahead.
You know, I won't say it doesn't happen. Without pointing a finger at anyone, we've all been a young person, and maybe someone has set us up to do something. And so I would just say, it's not that it doesn't.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think we might have lost sound. I'm so sorry.
I couldn't hear her. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I'm so sorry. I was waiting to see. Let me just double check. Yeah, I don't show that. I don't show that you're muted, Lenore. Can you hear us? Okay.
Well, while you're figuring that out, I'll just answer that yes,
Yeah, thank you.
we definitely get prank calls. It's always obvious. I mean, it's always kids or teenagers saying, "Yeah, there's a dead body." Hee hee hee. They can't contain themselves. Whatever. They're just being kids. We just say, "Is there an adult I can talk to? If not, I'm going to send the police over." And as soon as I say I'm sending an officer over, then they're like, "Oh no, we're good. We're good." So it happens, definitely. Kids will be kids.
Yeah, thank you. So Nicole, is there an average response time from call to first responder, like on site in city areas?
Yeah. So I can only speak for our agency. Obviously, it's the only one I have statistics for. But it's between 2 and 4 minutes. So usually about a 4 minute response time from the time I answer the phone to the time and that's for paramedics. Those are the ones that we track. From the time I answer to the time they get there is about 4 minutes.
Thank you. And just see if we can hear Lenore again. Lenore, are you still there? We've got another question for you, but while we're working on seeing if we can get her back, so yes, if there are any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try to get the one final question for Lenore if we can. Can you hear us, Lenore? Yeah, so any final questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. Give everyone just a second to type those in if any last questions, if there are any last questions.
I do want to throw out, just so that people are aware, we do accept sit-alongs. If you ever want to come sit with the dispatcher, like I said, we're doing a remodel right now, but it should be done by the end of the year. So after the end of the year, if you ever want to come in and sit with us, feel free. We just do a simple background check if you're over 18, but feel free to come sit with us, see what we do.
That's wonderful. And then what would be the best way to get in touch with you if someone were interested in that?
You could just call the phone number on our website, or just call that non-emergency number and ask to talk to HR or me.
Wonderful, thanks.
Yeah, the phone number on our website goes to HR.
Okay, so thank you, Nicole. All right, so I'm gonna see if Lenore can answer via chat this final question. The question was, what does a mock drill look like? So while she types out that answer, if possible, we'll go ahead and start wrapping up. Nicole, any last thoughts to add before we wrap things up for tonight?
I appreciate all of you guys joining and learning. That's all we can ask, is that people educate themselves about all of this. I think that's great that you guys took interest.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Oh, we do have one last question. How do the first responders and emergency communications handle a situation like the pandemic, when you have families of yourself to take care of?
That was actually a really interesting time for us, because we had job security while everybody else around us was being laid off. Our staffing was wonderful because nobody was quitting, nobody was leaving. We were essential workers, like we all had a secure job. So we had protocols to follow, that the health department put out, but otherwise it was just a regular day.
Thank you. Okay, so Lenore, in terms of what a mock drill looks like, she was saying that what will happen is there would be people to come in to act like victims, and they would have various fake injuries, and then they would have those going through the CERT program figure out what is wrong, etc., and then work on those situations in a mock setting, and then it's always in a neighborhood setting. For example, your next door neighbor. And so that's kind of a little bit about what a mock drill would look like for certs. She did offer an email, prevention@sandy.utah.gov, if you have any questions or would like to contact Lenore. Unfortunately, we're having an audio issue there, but that's prevention@sandy.utah.gov. It's also in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out of your evening to be here. This was wonderful, and we really appreciate Lenore and Nicole for answering our questions and these really informative and meaningful presentations. So thank you very much. All right. So we'll go ahead and end recording and close out this meeting. And thank you so much. Hope everyone has a wonderful night.